I soak my frustrations, I'll even ask my fleas. The lady upstairs, it's just a frog ice white.
Compared to Wellington, Auckland seems rather dull. Although there should be a lot more happening, there doesn't really appear to be.
Yeah, but bands aren't exactly encouraged in Auckland to start up now. I mean, there's nowhere to play. Why start? You're going to be a garage band. There's nowhere to go.
For me, I noticed about 4 or 5 years ago, winter started becoming an awkward time, and we were habitually losing money in winter. So that's a tough time.
Times are tough for rock bands throughout New Zealand, but it's here in Auckland they feel it the most. This is a mecca not only for the 1.5 odd million northerners, but for bands from the rest of the country to go and seek their fortune. But as the gigs close down here, there's a certain desperation to find a formula that works. Hello Sailor, Citizen Band and the Whiz Kids have virtually reformed to try and recapture the successful sound of a couple of years ago.
The bus, I hate it! It's always late.
Auckland is influenced by whatever happens to be popular at the time.
It seems to be a bit more brighter than the sort of music from Wellington. Seems to be very much along the lines of Joy Division and a lot of those more morbid English bands. I think the Auckland music's a bit more, you know, vibrant, if you know what I mean.
In Auckland, it's more of a profound music. It's more of a slower music, a much more dramatic type of music that goes down well with the people.
I think a lot of the music in Auckland is sort of more, almost got a reggae feel to it, possibly the difference in weather.
Well, just pleasant songs about boy meets girl. There's a lot more of that in Auckland. Compared to Wellington, anyway, it's probably more laid back. It's not as business-oriented as Wellington. The bands aren't as politically inclined.
I'm disappointed by a lot of the pop music that's happening now. I think a lot of it's just bland. I think a band like Pneumatics brought a lot to pop music. They had a lot of influences, but they brought a lot to the form. They didn't just imitate your classic radio type pop song, and we're getting a lot of sort of copyists of the classic pop mould, and that's boring. But Pneumatics brought all different influences, and in the end the outcome was pop.
Sure.
But there's more to it than some of the bland things at the moment. I think there's a lack of inspiration.
Bands are breaking up left, right and centre because times are tough. Habitually, as a matter of fact, in midwinter, things get tough.
Oh, my darling, that I know what I can. Used to tell you that I love in this man. I built a mountain with you at his feet.
Well, the glue pop's good, but it's very, very conservative. And the Memes have had trouble getting in there.
We've been
because they've been considered a punk
months.
rock band, and the Memes left punk rock 2 years ago.
Certainly the biggest gig. Therefore it's the best money-wise for a band. It tends to book. They tend to book, you know, older bands.
Oh, my darling, that I know what I can.
I basically try to put myself in the punter's seat. That's, you know, and that's really how I go about it. I sit down and I look at the band and I say, I've paid my bucks. Now, what do I expect to get from this band and from this venue? And, you know, the Mitch Marstons, the Graham Braziers, the Dave Dobbin type bands, they are the ones that are pulling the people in. You know, I really try to keep it that way, you know, fun bands, with a bit of rhythm in it, you know.
Well, I don't think Auckland's a boring city. I think people are sort of, you know, maybe a bit more crazy here than they are in other parts of New Zealand. I think there's some great young bands coming out. You know, it's just a matter of whether there's a venues for them to play.
3 months ago even there was a reasonable number of gigs, but unfortunately several have closed and several are closing now, and it's simply because I think that we haven't had the bands in recent times to sustain the gigs, you know, like the public haven't been supporting the venues, and it is a little bit depressed at the moment.
But is it the band's job to attract the public, or the pub's job to provide an attractive venue for the band?
It's also the band's having to pull anyone. I mean, it's the fact of if there's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to go.
There's, you know, small numbers in venues and small numbers of musicians and bands a lot of the time. The three-piece era seems to be upon us, which is a pity, really. There's been some great three-pieces. Blams was a great three-piece, is a great three-piece. But there's just too many very ordinary three-pieces around at the moment, and I don't think they can compete with what people are hearing on record. There's certain bars, a lounge bar that's opened up several months ago and plays new music over a PA with a similar, you know, volume intensity to a band, and it's proved very popular, possibly because the bands that people want to see in Auckland are a bit weak at the moment.
I think the bands have got to the stage where they think something's wrong, what's wrong, they're not coming along, and the fact that they're not coming along is not solely responsible to the bands. A lot of it, I think, is the songs that they write, and their performances are just not up to the level that people expect anymore. We're losing live gigs like, you know, flies dropping off the wall. They're closing down one after another, and they're looking for a scapegoat, and they're trying to blame, among other things, me, which is not true. You know, if there's a good band playing tonight, I'd be there.
People are writing songs, I think, that are great to them, but not good to the person who paid at the door to come through. You know, I think a lot of the music today is quite boring. That's my point of view, really, that it's boring. You've heard it all before.
I would say lyrically, there's a lot of junk around Auckland. I wouldn't deny that. There's very little of interest in terms of lyrics. There's just been a few exceptions, that's all. I hope things will improve. It's a pity, like, Mimi's are a leading band, but lyrically, there's virtually nothing there. I mean, their best lyric is My Girl's Got Pointy Ears. You know, that's classic pop, maybe, but not the lyric of the future, maybe.
The Screaming Mimis are one of the few reliable drawing bands in Auckland, and the only one whose members are under 25. This puts a big burden on them to maintain the underage scene virtually single-handed. But until some competition turns up from the melting pot of the suburbs, their enjoyably erratic performances are the sole promise of better things to come among the established Gambles, Marsdens and Braziers.
I've seen the Mimis on a few occasions. Once they were abysmal and twice they were brilliant. They're a bit like Hello Sailor, where, you know, you could see us on any given night and never really, even the band wouldn't know quite how we were going to perform.
There's no underage places in Auckland at all. It's not like when you tour around the country, you see even the smallest of towns have got a club or something that caters for underage, but Auckland hasn't. I mean, after
there's been no shortage of underage places opening over the last couple of years. It was closed very fast.
Why should? Oh, not really. How many have there been? Squeeze and Excess. For a city the size of Auckland, it's pathetic. But I mean, I don't know. I think Excess was great. It was a really good place, and it was a good atmosphere. It got a bit seedy at the end.
Excess was an underage venue, and the owners just got so much damage they chose to close it. If someone did start up an underage venue, it would be great. It's great for the bands to play to a younger audience. They're more responsive, but it would be a very serious undertaking.
Well, I mean, if the original people that we know are friends that have liked us since Excess, I mean, if they stick around for another 3 years or 2 years, and when we're allowed to go to pubs, and then they'll be allowed to go to pubs, so it'd be a happy circle. But I mean, it's not going to happen. I mean, we're not going to be around that long, so we can wait for our audience to become of age. It's pathetic.
There have been other venues in town that have gone for the younger band, which are now struggling and going out of business. Some have already gone out of business. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. Huh?
Hammond's always been a strong draw in Auckland with Street Talk, and now just working with keyboard player Stuart Pearce. So he's always been a strong draw, and I suspect will be for a long time.
The case is that there's a bunch of young people out there in Auckland, in fact all around the country, that play in bands and playing good bands, playing more of a modernistic type of a thing, which young people want to hear, but they can't get the gigs that us older people in stabilised bands can get. They get bands in like Dance Exponents and people like that coming up. There's a whole lot of people that are changing from going to live pubs where live bands are. They're going to they're going to bars that just play music, you know, because they don't want to listen to the sort of stuff perhaps that I do. But there's a big audience for the newer bands around that will go out and see that. So there'll be a rejuvenation in people coming to pubs perhaps, and certainly as soon as it hits, there's going to be an onslaught of new younger acts that are going to give younger people in New Zealand a real neat time.
Hello? Oh, hi there.
So it all comes down to people like Mike Corless of New Music Management, the biggest booking agency in the country.
New Music Management is straight, you know, in terms of keeping to what they agree with. You've just got to get a good agreement with them beforehand.
Round and round in circles, seeing creatures in the night.
There are a lot of bands coming in from out of town who seem to be making an impression. Bands like Dance Exponents, Hip Singles, Narcs, Rose Baynard are coming to Auckland soon. Bit of heavy metal for Auckland. Should be great. But, I mean, those bands seem to apply themselves a lot better than some of the Auckland bands have in the past. They're much more vibrant and exciting and lively on stage, and they're hungry, and I mean, they're really working, you know, and you have to work to be successful. Nobody gets anywhere without, you know, some hard work, and I mean, you've got to play to the public. It's as simple as that, and they're the ones that are paying the cover charge on the door after all.
I think we worked at simplicity and a slower beat, not straight for the dance beat, but more for a good song, which is what Auckland is all about. It's the song that really counts.
There have been great New Zealand songs written in the last few years, and I don't think it's going to stop. I think there's going to be new bands emerging in the next summer.
If the band is serious, then the audience is going to be serious. Huh? You know, it must come from the band. You know, it's the magic.
Whole Christmas season, going out of office parties and all that starts about then anyhow. People go a bit silly when the sheep start being born. They've already started, haven't they?
I think it's going to be a period that'll go low and then come up by itself without any help from anybody, really.
There's going to be a boom, in my opinion, in summer this year.